Hello and welcome to the new video. That's what you're seeing in the background is me doing a T17 map and seeing how the build performs in the T17 maps. Not only that, I think I rolled some kind of bad mods or whatever the mods there were over there, because the Shaper was constantly chasing me and trying to slam me, beam me and other shenanigans that Shaper does. So I had a lot of fun trying to dodge the Shaper and trying to do the damage. So you're probably going to be wondering, is the Forbidden Rite a good T17 map clearer? And I would say no, with just one exception. This map that I'm currently running is the one that has the Sanctum boss Lycia, and the only thing that I would say it's the map is the exception. It's the main reason I used to play Forbidden Rite on the Sanctum League, so I'm very well aware how Lycia works and how to dodge her mechanics. That's why I would say this map is by far the easiest T17 map that you can do. But is the Forbidden Rite the best T17 map farmer? No. If you're just simply looking for a T17 map farmer, the Forbidden Rite is not the build for you, and absolutely I would rather try to find something better, like maybe a brand build. So now, if you really would like to start the Forbidden Rite because you like the Cyclone playstyle, you know, the build is still good, it's still tanky, it still can do a lot of content, it's still fun to play. Obviously, what just happened in this league just made the build expensive. There's no way on earth that you can create this build on a much lower budget. Otherwise you're just gonna be sacrificing too much defense or too much damage, and the build is gonna feel very bad. Not only that, since the changes in the 3.24 to the boss loot drops, such as Shaper and Cyrus, those two are the main that are affecting this build. Since the Thread of Hope, the large ring, costs 12 divines. That's a lot of money that you have to spend on this build, otherwise you're going to be wasting a lot of points. Not only that, the Dying Zone cost 5 divines. A Flask that used to cost maybe a good roll at 1 divine, now you have to pay 5 divines for like a crappy one. Obviously, once the league goes on and on and on, those prices might go down, but that's not the only thing. If you want to improve the build even further and further, Awakened Custom Crit costs more than 45 divines. So yeah, this build became very expensive due to those changes that GG made to the boss and loot drop. If you're interested how I gather my currency to get this build up and running, you can go on my YouTube channel. I will link in the description. I started as Occultist Arakali Fang, and that build was significantly cheaper, and I started that as my league starter, and I farmed all of my currency on that build until I could transition into a custom crit Forbidden Rite. Here's a fair warning for people who just grab the POB and go. If you make this far, hopefully you can listen to this warning. There's a lot of tricks that are implemented to make sure that we're not using a mana, flask and other things. This is gonna be explained in the gear section, in the passive tree and so on. So I would advise really just listen to the full video after this fight, because everything that I'm gonna say in the gear section, the Pantheon and everything, it's very important. I will give you some choices every now and then, but sometimes I'm just gonna say no, you know what, you have to buy it, otherwise you're just gonna make the build clunky, and then you're just gonna leave a comment, oh, why this doesn't work. I mean, most likely because you didn't follow the instructions on the build guide. So be warned, please listen to what I'm gonna have to say after the fight.
You will know pain. Sweat that. You are only delaying the inevitable. At
For the bandit choice, you're gonna be picking Alira. So let's talk about the Pantheon. The minor god is gonna be Soul of Aberrant. I only use this to help myself with the Ignite and the Burning Grounds because I'm doing the red altars. Now, if you're not doing the red altars and you don't have any problems with the Burning Ground, you could actually swap this to a different minor god and you can get yourself anti-ignite Flask over here that I have chance to be avoid stun, and you could get yourself, you know, for the ignite. So that's something that you can, you know, play around a little bit. That's, you know, depends if you're actually running the red altars. Then for the major god, I have to use Soul of the Brine King because I need all of the stats from the Brine King, such as the chill effect, the frozen, and I need the stun immunity. It's not necessarily a bulletproof stun immunity, but it does the job for the mapping and the bossing and so on. Occasionally I will stop you know, cycloning for a second because I'm gonna get the micro stun, let's call it like that. So the Brine King is not like 100% good solution, but it does the job and it's actually free. Now, passive tree. Actually, there's a lot of things happening over here, and I will explain the best as I can what kind of choice you should be doing and what kind of alternative, you know, flexibility do you have. Let me just say there's not much flexibility in this build, so it's gonna be a bit rough. So let's just start. If you're wondering what are those like purple nodes, they are pretty much reduced cures effect, and I wanted to have them those points. They are pretty much tattoos, right? You can see the tattoo of Hinekora, and you want to have 9 of them with your flask for the cures. Or I have it on my diamond. This gives me 100% reduced cures effect while I'm mapping, so that's how I get my cures immunity. Now the flexibility comes with those 2 points. I only have them because I cannot upgrade my belt, and I'm missing some strength and dexterity, and I think a little bit resistance. I actually have an upgraded belt, but I cannot use it because I'm missing Awaken Custom Crit. So if you can balance your stats and the resistance, you can drop down those 2 points and you're gonna have 2 spare points. If you're gonna be struggling like me, you should actually take them. Now moving on, there's not much happening over here. I would say get yourself the instant 10% instant leech. This is very important, especially when you're starting and you cannot buy the Watcher's Eye. This will help you out. Obviously the 10% instant leech is not good enough like the Watcher's Eye, but it's simply 4 points and you can have a good leech. It's not perfect, it's good. That you have to remember. Now here's like the tricky part a little bit with the clusters. Because what you want to have on this cluster, it's mainly you're looking for the Unholy Grace and you're looking for the increased attack speed. So you would like to have Unholy Grace and other passive over here. When you're gonna be buying this from the trade, check if you know if the cluster jewel is gonna be, you know, the passive is gonna be over here. Moving to 2 medium ones, you wanna get the Streamline and Eye to Eye. The Streamline is mainly for the projectile speed, because Forbidden Rite, which of the projectile speed feels very clunky for me. If you want more damage, yeah, go for it. But I would say projectile speed is very important. That's why you're gonna have 2 of them over here. Then I have on my first jewel, and I was looking for something like resistance, reduced chill effect, and corrupted blood. That was the main 3 stats I was looking at this jewel, and that's what you should be looking as well. The next medium cluster jewel is the same thing: Eye to Eye, Streamline, projectile speed, some damage. And then I have a small cluster jewel over here for Zealotry, and it has to be reservation. And not only that, you have to get yourself some stats. I was lucky enough, and I crafted this myself with the dexterity. Now you have a couple choices. You don't have to have a Zealotry. You can have determination or any other big auras that you keep in your helmet. So you can be either Zealotry or determination. You have 2 choices over here. But you know, I got Zealotry, so I'm happy with that. Then you move on and you take a look on Militant Fate. Again, Militant Fate is very important. The main stats that you're looking is Dominus, because you're gonna be getting more damage per power charge. And the second important is reduce mana cost. The resistance are nice. I would say they are too mandatory. Depends if you can get more resistance somewhere else. But the reduce mana cost and the dominus are the most important stats that you need on this duel. Without those two stats, you're probably gonna be struggling, especially with the reduce. If you cannot get yourself the reduced mana, you might fall into a problem with the mana, and then you're gonna be using a mana flask. So just remember that. Then once you move to the mastery on the mana mastery, I'm taking 10 reduced cost of mana because we need to reduce the cost even more, because you know Forbidden Rite costs too much mana and we don't have the flask mod, so that's what I'm doing. This is a generic increased damage per charges, not much happening over here. +1 to socketed chaos gems, again increase helmet, energy shield, not much happening. Then it's a bit of block chance from the mastery, again not much happening. And then we go to another cluster jewel. There's another cluster jewel of the chaos, like increased chaos damage. And what you're looking, again, it's Unholy Might for the increased attack speed. You're gonna learn more about why I'm chasing the Unholy Grace, especially when you go to the Claw node in the timestamp. And then I got myself a Touch of Cruelty and other filler passive. Actually, this cluster I bought it on the trade. It was very cheap. I cannot exactly remember how much it was, but it was very cheap, so I just got it. And then we're moving up to the 2 medium cluster jewels. So they are pretty much Pressure Point and Basic Pain, because they need some crit chance and there's double damage. And the small node, I have some fire resistance. The chaos resistance is useless because we are chaos immune. For the small jewel, I was looking for something like the top priority was reduce chill effect, get some resistance, and then get some increased energy shield if I can, and whatever else. So this jewel I bought in a trade, again was I think 20C or give or take. And there's another one of the medium cluster jewel. I have some +2 dexterity, same thing, basic pain, pressure point. And now we come to the watcher side. Now, which one mod is important? That really depends on the situation that you're gonna be in. I'm gonna make a separate timestamp with the mana cost that you can go over there, and I will explain you, the choices that you should do. But ideally, you wanna buy the same thing: the discipline mod and the clarity. If I had to choose which one should be more important, I would say discipline and ignore the clarity and just get the reduction somewhere else. But that might be a little bit too tricky for you, so sometimes you might choose to get the clarity and skip the discipline mod, even if I really like the discipline mod and makes the build very tanky. But even if you skip the discipline mod, the 10% instant leech will actually help you out for the time of gathering the currency. So there is a choice over here. Then we go over here, the crit mastery, that's some multi on the unique enemies, increased damage per affected aura. This is another important mastery, because 10% of physical damage we take as a chaos. Since we are chaos immune, the 10% of physical damage does not exist, and that makes us a little bit more tanky. Then we go to the Thread of Hope, and there's some things that you can do over here. Obviously, you're taking the Divine Shield, Glancing Blow, and you take some over here spell damage and stats. You can get this node over here for the reduced mana cost over here, the 3%. Again, you're gonna have to refer the timestamp with the mana cost. I will explain more details over there. So the Flask choice for this build. Firstly, we're using Dying Sun with the crafted hit Arero unique enemy. This is the situation when you actually need a Dying Sun, otherwise Dying Sun is not that important in white trashy mobs. So that craft is absolutely great for this flask. Then we move into the Diamond Flask. You need a Diamond Flask because you need that extra critical chance. Then you want to get yourself the Curse Reduction, and you want to have the chance to gain Flask when you deal critical strike. This will make the uptime on your Diamond Flask pretty much permanently, as long as you're gonna be hitting a monster. Then we'll move into the Granite Flask. You're trying to get yourself to gain 3 charges and then increase armor. This will just make you a little bit tanky. Then we move into Topaz Flask. Topaz Flask is only here because it gives you the least amount of charges for this flask, because you only need 20, and this gives you the corrupting blood and bleeding immunity. So while you're mapping, you don't see too much of a bleeding. That's what great quality of life. And the last flask is there's a little bit flexibility over here, because you just want to have a sapphire base. You want to get the free charges when you are hit by the enemy. And now you have, I would say, at least 3 choices. You can get the stun avoidance like I have, or if you don't have the power charge on the helmet like I have, then you can get yourself an increased critical chance during the flash effect, something like that, just to make up for that missing power charge on your helmet. And the third option is you can craft yourself ignite immunity if you're not gonna be using the small Pantheon like I'm doing for the ignite. So those are your 3 choices for the sapphire. So let's start the gear section. The first thing that you're gonna be buying is the belt. In my opinion, this is like the most important thing that you have to buy. And while you're gonna be prioritizing stats, the 14% increase cooldown recovery should be on the top of your list, because otherwise you will break the trigger rate. And the 14% is the bare minimum. You can go higher, but you cannot go lower. And now, what else are you looking for on your belt? You're looking for any resistance, any flat energy shield, more resistance, more stats, anything else that you can get. In more like valuable stats you can get on your belt, this will make more and easier to gear up your character. Not only that, you can apply catalyst, maybe resistance or defensive, since defensives are much cheaper, and you can get a little bit more energy shield. So let's move on to another important piece of the gear. It's the claw. The claw is quite simple to do, but you can have some flexibility with it. First of all, you want to buy yourself a fractured Gemini claw. That's very important because you need that gain mana no matter what. Once you have the Gemini claw with the fractured T1 crit, no matter what, buy the T1. Even if you spend 1 divine, this claw will last you very long. Then what you want to do is just use either some essence for the spell damage. I think it's called Woe. Once you hit essence, you're gonna have the crit chance, you're gonna have the spell damage, and if you're lucky enough that you're gonna have open prefix, you just hit yourself. The hits cannot be evaded, and you can say call it a day, and that's the claw that you're gonna be using. Like you see in my claw, it's quite bad, but that's enough. But now, what's gonna happen if you get some increased attack speed on your claw? So depending if you get 10 or 20 or 25, you're gonna have to balance this with the POB a little bit. Because let's just say if you get 10, then you would have to drop down the Unholy Grace over here, and you would just buy a clean free passive large cluster jewel. Now on the other hand, if you get 20% increased attack speed, then you would want to drop down another Unholy Grace over here. Or there's another situation when you can keep the Unholy Grace, 2 Unholy Graces over here and here. You can have the 20% on the claw, but then what you want to do is swap the Cyclone of Tumult, that gives you more attack speed per stage, and you will go to the basic Cyclone. So obviously with the attack speed, you're gonna have to fiddle around a little bit in the POB, and the links that you're gonna be using in your claw is gonna be Assassin Mark. You don't need the quality, you just want to get yourself either a 21 or 20, doesn't really matter too much. Then you want to have Inspiration, that's very important. You want to have quality because that gives you reduced mana cost, and then you want to have Mark on Hit. Now moving on to the rings, and the rings gonna be very important. So let's start with the easiest one. Firstly, you want to buy yourself the synthesized implicit with -3 total mana cost. It has to be free no matter what. Then you just want to spam the alteration. Before even you're gonna spam the alteration, scour it, make it sure that it's just a white ring, apply 4 catalysts for the attributes, and then spam alteration until you hit a T1 strength. Then you're gonna have a huge chunk of strength, and then you wanna have open prefix to craft yourself a non-channeling. Generally, this will give you a -10 to your forbidden rite. That's very, very huge. And you're gonna be applying the same thing on your next ring. Again, you buy yourself a synthesized base, -3. You're scouring the ring. In this situation, I applied 4 catalysts for the resistance, and I was just spamming harvest, fire, cold, lightning, just to get some resistance. And I got a pretty decent, because I got 2 resistance, some energy shield, some int, and I had an open prefix for the non-channeling. That gives you another 10 of your forbidden rite. So those 2 rings are very, very important. Now gloves. The gloves, what you're looking for is high amount of energy shield. I think you need the bare minimum, you need 51 dexterity or more, and you want to get as much of resistance as you can. That's like very important. And then you're just gonna get yourself the implicit for chance to unnerve for 4 seconds while hit. The maim is not important, it's just, it's there because there's nothing else too important that you can get that's gonna give you some bonuses for the build. And the links that you're gonna be keeping in your gloves, it's gonna be Despair, Clarity level 1. You might not need the Clarity. If you don't have the Watcher side, then you're gonna have 1 available socket over here. Then I have Reckoning and Custom Crit. So how does this work? Whenever you block, the Reckoning will proc. Then when Reckoning crits, you're gonna apply the Despair. So this is like a free ring setup. If you don't need the Clarity because you're not gonna be using, because you don't have the Watcher side, you could replace the Clarity with the Cooling Strike. So the helmet that I'm using Viridi's Veil, and have an implicit for maximum power charge. If you cannot buy yourself the Viridi's Veil with the maximum power charges, they might be too expensive or whatever other reason it is, you're gonna be missing some critical strike chance. So what I would do, I would just apply on my Sapphire Flask, I would get myself the gain 3 charges and increase critical strike during the Flask effect. There's some kind of wording on that flask. This will make up the crit chance for losing the power charge. But once you have the power charge, then you don't need the crit chance on the flask. Then the prioritizing stats on the Viridi's Veil is +2 resistance, and then there's the increased armor energy shield. And then you want to keep yourself the blue ring on the left slot, because this will give you that you do not take the critical damage. And the links that you're gonna be keeping in your Viridi's Veil is gonna be Discipline, Val Discipline. I prefer a Val Discipline over having a Discipline level 21. It's far better. Then you're gonna be keeping Zealotry, Determination, and Enlighten level 3. Now boots. Of course, we're gonna use my favorite boot, Stampedes. And the links that you're gonna be keeping on your Stampedes is Defiance Banner, Molten Shell, Automation, Tempest Shield. You don't need the quality on the Tempest Shield, you just wanna get it level 21. The only stats that you're looking for on your Stampede is the increased cooldown recovery of the travel skills. This will help you a lot with like spamming your billing skill. And the anointment on your Stampedes, it really depends on the situation that you're gonna be in. If you can, and you like me, then you go for the Heart Seeker for the critical damage, But if you're running into mana problems, again, refer to the mana timestamp. You're gonna have to anoint Dreamer. That's gonna give you 10% reduced mana cost. Right, for the chest, you have two possibilities. Just please remember, I have wrong colors on this one, as I actually did drop that. But what you're looking for is 3 green, 3 blues, and you can use Skin of the Loyal. This wool chest will be good enough until you can gather more currency to buy yourself Skin of the Lords. And while you're gonna be buying Skin of the Lords, you still have to have 3 green, 3 blues. And what you wanna do is you wanna have yourself a keystone that you cannot be stunned. While I'm recording this video, there's no Skin of the Lord with with this keystone that I cannot be stunned. So the only way for me to gain that Skin of the Lord with this keystone would be to actually create that chest myself, and that's a big risk because I can, you know, just buy Blessing of Chayula at the time for 3 divines, and I can waste a bunch of currency like that. But unfortunately, if I want this keystone, probably I'm gonna have to do it myself, because, you know, if it does exist on the market, there's no way I can buy it. So the gem setup that you're gonna be using is gonna be a cyclone of tumult, or it's gonna be just a cyclone. This really depends how much attack speed you're gonna get on your claw, right? Then you're gonna be using Forbidden Rite, Cast on Crit. You can upgrade this if you can afford it to Awaken Cast on Crit. This will allow you to remove the belt and get rid of that cooldown reduction from the belt. Then Crit Chance and Power Charge on Critical Strike, because you need to generate power charges. And now here's like a tricky thing, because the POB tells me that I'm supposed to be using Volley, right? That gives me the most amount of damage. And after playing for a couple of days with the Volley, I can tell you this. There's definitely a huge increase in the clear speed, because you can see a lot of projectiles going, you know, everywhere. Like, you know, you can clearly see that the clear speed with Volley is absolutely fantastic. Now, when it comes to bossing, POB tells me the Dying Sun should be increasing my damage. But here's the weird part, because according to the wiki and whatever I can gather on the, you know, in the internet, Forbidden Rite can only shoot 5 projectiles in the same target. So you get 1 projectile from the Forbidden Rite and 4 projectiles from the Volley. So that should be the maximum amount of projectiles. So in other words, Dying Sun should not be giving me any extra damage. But for some reason, it does do that. It still gives me the damage, so I don't know what kind of interaction is going over here. Not only that, the Volley is gonna get you, has more multiplier for the mana, so you would have to fiddle around with mana a little bit more. On the other hand, Void Manipulation has a little bit less mana. It's still good as Volley, definitely is worst on like clearing the monsters, like, you know, like just clearing the trashy mobs, because you're not shooting as many projectiles as you would do with the Volley. But when I was killing a Minotaur, White Minotaur, 4 times, and as long as you're killing something like in the duration of the Dying Sun, the Void Manipulation was winning, right, compared to Greater Volley. But once I got, you know, like, you know, some more tanky boss, like, you know, I made it a little bit more life and so on, then the Volley and the Void Manipulation were quite equal. So I don't know what kind of calculation goes over here, but I would say both of the gems are really good. I cannot tell you which one is better, because I mean that, you know, unless we're just gonna go what the POB tells me, then I'm gonna tell you the Volley is better, right? But both of them are good. So ultimately I would say like this: you have to pick between them two on your own. If you have a mana problems, probably you would skip the Volley and go to the Void Manipulation. Unless you really want the better clear speed, then I would go Volley. Like, you know, since you're gonna have 3 greens, 3 blues in your chest, you can just swap around and see what's better and decide for yourself, you know, by your feeling. You know, if you feel the Volley is better, just go with the Volley, right? For the Amulet slot, you're gonna be using a replica of Dragon Fang, and mainly we're using this for 2 reasons. One, it gives you +3 to levels of Forbidden Rite, that gives you like a good amount of damage, and the second one is the last line: the item and gem reduce attribute requirement. Because if you look on the termination, I don't have enough stats to use it, but I'm still able to use it because of this amulet. So what I would say, the last line with the item and gems, try to get as high as you can without paying too much, because that stat is very good for the build, but it's not something that you should be breaking the bank for, you know, a couple more percentage. Now, you're gonna be anointing your amulet for the power charge over here. here's the oils that you're gonna be using for that anointment, and you're gonna be applying a 20 attribute catalyst, because that's gonna give you 3 extra stats, and you know the build is very hungry for the attributes, so you should actually go for it. And this is gonna be the only item that's very simple to buy, because you just need to buy yourself Aegis, and how much stats you know the armor, energy, shield you have on the shield is, you know, depends entirely on you. You can start corrupting the Aegis like I'm doing, because you want to get yourself the, I think it's between 6 to 8% physical damage taken from hits, but I have as a fire damage. You want to have this mod as a chaos damage. Since you're chaos immune, that would mean the 8% of the physical damage just goes into the abyss. And gems that you're gonna be using in your Aegis is this: faster attack, whirlwind blade, and frost blink. Now, if you really hate mobility and you hate whirlwind blade for some reason, there is a possibility that you could remove whirlwind blades and faster attack and get yourself Call of the Arms and Enduring Cry. This will make you a little bit more tanky, but just remember, if you do that, if you get yourself Call of the Arms and Enduring Cry over here, you're gonna have to spec a 1 point in Zealot Oath over here, because then that means the life regen applies to energy. So in this patch, GGG removed the Flask craft that you could craft on your Flask, reduce cost of skills during the Flask effort, or whatever that mod was exactly. That mod no longer exists. So you have to balance your mana a little bit different. And let me just give you a number. You cannot go above 20 mana with your Forbidden Rite. Maybe you can do 21. I didn't test out that properly, because you know there's not a easy solution just to go and hit some kind of rare monster infinitely to test it out. So you know there's kind of clunky way of testing this out with the delve. So so I was able to test out, if you get 20 mana on your Forbidden Rite, and I think you can go about 10 on your Assassin Mark, but the rest of the skills have to be totally free. What I mean is Frostlink free, Whirlwind Blade free, Cyclone free, and the Molten Shen has to be free, right? As long as you hit 20 and about 10, I'm not sure about over here, you will have no mana issue, and you won't be needing the mana flask. So how did I achieve that? So obviously there's gonna be a different solution in the POB for you, because I have a very expensive Watcher Eye, but I did manage to figure out a way which of that Watcher's Eye, because I was using that solution. But at some point I upgraded my Watcher's Eye, so I'm no longer using that solution. But that cheaper solution will be in the POB for you to use. Well, let me explain a little bit more if you just came here for the mana problem and you're using some kind of else Forbidden Rite build guide. What I'm doing is this: I'm reducing 10 total mana on this ring out of my Forbidden Rite. So that is 10 over here, 10 over here. Then in my POB I have a different anointment on my Stampedes, because I have a Dreamer over here. Then when you have the Big Thread of Hope, you can squeeze this node, this extra node, that's 3 extra % over here. Then you move on to the Mana Mastery, that's 10% over here. Then you have on your Militant Fate a little bit reduction over here, because I think I have 7 or 8, I cannot exactly remember, I will have to check the POB. I have the Clarity mod, you don't actually need it, but you can have it. And I think that's gonna be it. Yeah. And yeah, I'm reducing the Assassin Mark cost with the Inspiration as well. So to summarize this, the POB, right, the mana is focused around having a void manipulation game, right? If you choose to go into a volley, you will get 5 additional mana, maybe 6, I'm not exactly sure. But what that's gonna mean is just those passive and notables and anointments won't be not enough. So what's gonna happen, you're gonna have to change your Watcher's Eye to the clarity mode, when you get at the bare minimum -5 non-channeling. Ideally you would have to buy a bit more. So just so you are aware of that. So here's like a quick information about the POB and the cyclone, because I know I got this question in my previous video in the Inquisitor. When you're going to be using the same cyclone as I am, and you're going to be looking, oh look, your trigger rate is very low, and you're going to be panicking, whoa, what's going on over here? Before you start panicking and posting some kind of comment, you have to go to POB. You're going to have to go over here when it's a cyclone and forbidden rite. You have to switch from forbidden rite to a cyclone, and you just have to increase the stages, because remember, with each stage the cyclone gives you more attack speed, so your trigger rate will go up and up. So if you go up 6 stages, that's the maximum stages for the cyclone, your trigger rate goes back to normal and you have the proper damage. If you made this far in the video, thank you for watching. I'm probably gonna see you later in my next video.